Once there was a cat named Filia, clever as could be and proud of his beautiful swishing tail. Mice trembled at the sound of his paws, for he was their fiercest enemy. He loved to roam the woods, and more often than not, he'd end up brawling with other cats, always over the favor of some lovely lady cat. He always slipped back through the window long after everyone was asleep. If I called out, "Filia, come back," he'd race home in a flash. I'd feed him, stroke his fur, sometimes scold him. His blue-gray fur kept me uneasy. What if someone tried to snatch him up and turn it into a mink hat? For the first 2 years of his life, Filia knew only nature and freedom. We weren't always home, and sometimes his meals were late or not very tasty. If the canned food was poor or too little, he'd prowl the chilly, quiet house, nibbling at frozen scraps, lonely and sad. Once in a while, he waited as long as 2 whole days for us to return. But then, 2 lights in the distance. The car! His heart leapt. In the window, he caught a glimpse of us, and he opened his mouth in a silent cry. Come faster. He dashed from door to window, afraid the vision might vanish. Laughing, weeping, and trembling all at once, he stretched to his full height in the window to greet us, welcoming us back into his home. I was very happy in that forest house. On winter evenings, when the fireplace glowed and crackled, I'd sit with my marvelous, clever blue-gray cat, my beloved companion. My days were filled with work, welcoming guests, picking mushrooms and apples, and watching the snow fall in soft, feathery heaps. Filia liked to curl up on grandfather's knees, purring away while secretly treating him for stress and high blood pressure. Grandfather liked him, though his affection went no further than a gentle pat. But I combed his silky fur, played hide and seek in every corner of the house, and tickled his round, warm belly until he wriggled with delight. Then, one day, everything changed. One evening, we fell asleep on a plane above Moscow, and by morning, we were waking up in America. Just like that, we had gone from here to there, leaving Filia in the care of a foolish fellow who promised to visit often, stay in our house from time to time, write his poetry there, and most importantly, take good care of Filia. Then, without warning, through somebody's carelessness, disaster struck. A fire broke out, and our house was swallowed in flames, opening the floodgates for trouble to rush into our lives. When the firemen had doused the blaze, the neighbors, drawn by curiosity, noticed a blue-gray cat sitting nearby, staring at the smoking ruins as if trying to understand how the fire had eaten his little home. Only later did someone guess that he had escaped from the burning house. But by the time the thought crossed their minds, the cat was gone. They called for him, but there was no answer. The fire, never fully put out, smoldered on, consuming almost all of what little remained of the house. And an hour later, no one remembered either the cat or the house. What was left untouched? We found only a white door swinging in the wind, a bent, lonely chimney, and under the porch, where the fire had begun, a toy truck, a cruel reminder of what was lost. The fire had eaten up all our joy, the dear little house, our car, the sweets stored in the basement. It left behind only a heavy, ominous sign in our hearts. When the news reached us, our happiness crumbled. We couldn't sleep. We wept. We clenched our fists, powerless to discover who had wronged us. And though we tried to forget, tried to let it all fade, there were 2 things we could never erase from our minds: the house and the cat. When we finally came back to Moscow, we found that everything had changed while we were away. There was no place for us, no place for our usual lighthearted life. We faced the dilemma of building a new house or leaving all the pain behind and living further away. But I didn't forget the cat. I looked for him in my anxious dreams. I was afraid to drive to the ruins where the fire took place, but I couldn't find peace of mind. But one day, I drove there at last. I still couldn't bring myself to go near the ruins, but I walked to and fro and called out, "Filha." My voice could be heard for 2 miles. I don't remember how many times I went there like that. Once I went up to the house and my heart tightened in a painful knot. I cried and I called for him to come. It was useless. I knew if he were alive, he'd be here at home. But there is no house. There are no owners for Filha. It looks like poor Filha thinks, my owners have abandoned me. Then our neighbor, who was aware of everything, called me about the cat, telling me that owners of the country cottages around the countryside had been seeing him from time to time for the last 2 months. A strange, unhealthy gray cat came regularly to their houses, they said, around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They'd give him some food. The cat would rest a little in the corner and then leave to chase his destiny. Although the neighbors were very sorry for the cat, he couldn't stay with them for a long time. The cat was always in a hurry. He was always waiting for his owners, or maybe he was afraid he'd miss them when he wasn't sitting by the burned down house. And now, trembling, I visit my neighbors, hoping my cat will be there at 5 o'clock, hoping to find him there, fearing that I'll leave with nothing. So there I am, and suddenly, there he is. I don't just walk over to him. I come running. I enter the kitchen, and looking at him, I just begin to tremble. The cat resembles Filha, but only in size. This cat's dirty, lean and ragged, but he is gray. I grab him, not letting him go, pressing him to my breast, repeating his name, flattering him. But he's unfamiliar to me. Narrow eyes, hoarse voice, dull, tangled fur, thin tail. Imagine it for yourself. I'm not sure that this cat is my Filha. This cat is pitiful and sick. He brings me only pain. There's no joy of recognition. This cat doesn't recognize me. Growling like a dog, he wants to break away from my arms. But I keep on stroking him, petting as I used to do, and suddenly, he remembers my hands and presses his head into my breast, stops trying to tear himself away, sighs unhappily, and calms down for the time being, hoping for a miracle. Choking with tears, I sob. The people who live in the house sob with me. I lull him to sleep, kiss him, and cuddle him. I'm like a mad woman. I hold him firmly but delicately. He recognizes me and no longer wants to tear himself away. He only scrunches up his inflamed eyes without any fury. He hides his head in my hands, trying to sleep. I drive home to Moscow with him, repeating all the way, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." He purrs hoarsely, signaling emotional peace. I'm afraid to move, for it might disturb him. A new unfamiliar chapter began for all of us. You see, Filha was used to freedom, roaming the forest, wandering through swamps whenever he pleased. Living in an apartment in the city was the complete opposite to him. But our days followed a clear, steady schedule. I gave Filha good food and careful attention. I brushed his fur and washed his paws. I even took him outside for walks around the yard with Filha on a dog's leash, which he clearly disliked. Still, I couldn't walk him very often. He wanted to explore outside almost every hour. Throughout the day, Filha smelled the fresh air that called to him from the balcony, under the door, or the windowsill. We were both dissatisfied. We had no peace, neither he nor I. Filia never understood how I could stay cooped up inside the apartment without fresh air. He even attempted to dangle his paws, all 4 of them, over the balcony railing one time. He struggled whenever we went away. He'd leave traces of his scent on the carpet, then feeling guilty, he'd hide somewhere out of sight. I'd clean it up as quickly as I could, worried that grandfather might get upset. Grandfather couldn't understand Filia's sadness. And it's true, the smells did make the house uncomfortable. But the poor cat was just trying to show his love for freedom. He was used to living by nature's rules. At night, he sometimes slept with us, but memories of hunting would disturb his rest. He'd wander around, groan, meow, and ask us to open the door. To him, us not opening the door was an unfriendly thing. So he protested by using the space behind the door as his litter box. And every evening when we returned home, we'd sigh, "Oh my God, there is that smell again." At nights, I'd let him out on the balcony. But he didn't understand that we were on the 7th floor. Catching a glimpse of a bird, he attempted to spring up after it out of force of habit, as he had in our country house. I tried to keep him tied with a rope, but once on a dark night, he got himself so tied up that it almost strangled him, which very much frightened us. Once I got so angry when he disturbed our sleep meowing, just because the moon was shining so brightly, I let him go outside on the balcony. Then I fell asleep and forgot him totally. When I woke up the next morning, first I called my beloved cat. No answer. Then I started to look for him. No Filia. Suddenly, I grew cold. I'm on the balcony. He's not there. What's going on? I search all over, and then I rush outside. I call to Filia in the courtyard, looking all over for him. Sobbing, I ask everyone about him. Suddenly, a boy says to me, "Excuse me, are you looking for a cat? There's something like that over there. Crows are pecking at him." He's hardly breathing. I said to him, but he doesn't hear anything. I run over there and see my little darling lying there just as the boy said. The cat's in bad condition, but unbroken, somehow, as if petrified. I brought him home and looked him over. He was a little lame. I touched at his bones, no pain, but he's probably hurt himself badly. You see, he's just had a fall from the 7th floor. He's probably in shock. Oh, my poor Filia, my little darling. Why are you and I suffering so? From that moment on, Filia grew very weak. He'd lie quietly all day, letting out soft, mournful groans. He stopped trying to go outside, as if he'd quietly just accepted his captivity. He did his best to stay out of trouble, careful not to provoke grandfather's anger. Those days, grandfather didn't like the cat. Filia knew his place, though sometimes, as you might recall, there would be a small puddle under the door. I tried to come home earlier, hoping to clean up those little accidents and calm grandfather's temper. The apartment had a lingering smell, the air thick and stuffy. I was afraid to open the window ever since Filia's fall. I began reaching out to find someone kind who might give Filia a new home. I called everyone I could think of, asked around, even put up an announcement, but nothing changed. Food was scarce then, and people were reluctant to take on the responsibility of a pet. I even offered money, promised to bring food, but no one believed me. Everyone had their own burdens, their routines, their struggles. No one wanted to be troubled by a cat. At last, grandfather's patience snapped. He insisted we get rid of Filia. If I refused, he warned he'd either put the cat to sleep or leave him out for the stray dogs. Filia, sensing the rejection, withdrew completely. He wouldn't come near grandfather anymore. He tried to hide, avoided our laps where he used to curl up so comfortably. One evening, I came home late. Why did my Filia not come to meet me? When I saw the puddle, I understood that trouble had found him again. I searched everywhere, but I couldn't find him anywhere. And then it struck me, the terrible realization. Grandfather's anger had set something terrible in motion. I darted out to the balcony and then outside. I looked for the cat through the fences in the neighbors' yards, hurried toward every blue-gray object I could find. My heart throbbed like a motor, heavy with pain and sorrow, and everything in me said, enough. I knew how vulnerable Filia was, lame in pain, lost in a city he didn't know. He couldn't hunt. Other street cats would fight him, and he lacked the strength to defend himself. If he ended up living on the streets or in the dark cellars, he'd grow dirty and weak and helpless. Survival would be impossible. No one would care for such a beaten and broken cat. He'd fade away, starving, cold, sick, and some janitor would quietly carry away his lifeless body. I caught a very bad cold looking for the cat in all the neighborhood yards, calling his name in the freezing weather. I was angry with Grandfather and cried day and night. For Filia and me, sorrow. For Grandfather, victory. He had gotten rid of the cat he hated so much. The wound would stay in my soul forever. From that time on, I never saw my Filia again. I often see him clearly in my dreams. I kiss him and I'm happy. But in the morning, I hate my destiny, the fire, that nightmare event, and Grandfather's villainous act. What he did with the cat, to this day, I don't know. But in my thoughts, I replay what happened over and over again. I pray that there are some good people in this world who could be sheltering Filia, keeping him warm, comforting him, feeding him. I have a dream that Filia is alive, healthy. He doesn't remember his unhappy home. He's forgiven us all or forgotten about us. He is happy in his new life. Although I think he passed away in some basement or backyard. Years have gone by since then. I remember everything. I worry about him. I feel so sorry about all that happened. And although I love all the cats in the world, since that time I have not had any in my home. I leave you with a word of advice. When we bring pets into our homes, we must remember we are responsible for them.